Students, you are most welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Krishnendu Ray, teaching in the Department of Ancient Indian History and Culture, University of Calcutta. Today, we are concerned with an understanding of, in general, Indian culture, particularly our paper that we are concerned with today is Social and Cultural History of India from earliest times to 1700 AD. In this paper, particularly, the module that we are going to learn is concerned with an understanding of education in ancient and early medieval India. So, first of all, let me give you a very brief introduction what actually education is. Education is nothing but to make a learner aware of his or her surroundings in which he or she is born and brought up, so that in greater life, in greater social situations, in later days, one can lead his or her life successfully. This may be the essential aim, though there are many other aims of education that we are going to learn, but this, I think, is the main or essential aim, the realization of which is dependent on imparting education to some. So let us come to learn about the particular aims of the formal system of education that we are going to learn. What are those? First of all, informal education, formal education system, ancient Indian formal education knowledge system. So, the vernacular Vedic Brahmanic system of education, Jain system of education, Buddhist system of education, Islamic system of education, and overall we shall take a note, that is conclusion. These are the things that we are going to learn in this module. First of all, education in ancient and early medieval India was a combination of both informal and formal education. Informal education constituted vocational and or practical training in arts and crafts carried on through generations in families. Students, in this connection, we should have a very brief an outline about what actually changes. With the passage of time, society witnesses certain changes. Similarly, we also find certain changes occurred in our early Indian society. In order to cope with those changes, people were trained up. That's the major angle, that's the major aim which was realized by imparting education to them. So, education provided by wandering scholars, not only formal teachers, wandering scholars, or minstrels who travel from one place to another. Education provided by lay followers of Jainism and Buddhism also constitute informal education. 4 formal systems of education were developed during this period, starting from the Vedic period, and in the medieval period a specific system of formal education originated based on the development of Islamic culture in India. These 4 knowledge systems were the Brahmanic system, as I have told you just now, the Jain system, the Buddhist system, the Islamic system of education. The similar features of all these knowledge systems were their orientation around religion and their, as I have told you in the beginning, one was trained up to maintain a balance or relation with the surroundings. One could successfully lead their life. So, references to the Islamic knowledge systems found in the Quran and records of travelers. Regarding Brahmanic system or Buddhist system or Jain systems of education or knowledge systems, as you call, information can be gleaned from not only Vedic texts we will be seeing just now, but also travelers' records also. They also imparted certain things to the learner. Let us see next. References to the Brahmanic knowledge system are found in the Vedas, Brahmanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, Vedangas, Nakshatras, etc. etc. Many things. References to the Jain system are very few. Jain Sutras, records of traveling foreigners provide instances of this system. References to the Buddhist knowledge system are found in the Sutta, Vinaya Pitaka, Dharma, or rather Dhamma Pitaka, that is Pitaka literature, and references to the Islamic system of education found in the Quran and records of travelers. Now, apart from literary sources which have interpolations, there are archaeological sources related to each of these knowledge systems. Actually, what we see, there are many archaeological buildings in which every system of education, for example, Maktab, their Islamic system of education was imparted. For example, Nalanda University, there was Buddhist system of education was imparted. Similarly, in mathas or religious temples or other Brahmanic institutions where Brahmanical system of education was imparted. Now, ancient Indian formal system of education or knowledge systems, what we get? The Vedic and Brahmanic Gurukul system of education, Jain system of education, the Buddhist system of education, as I have told you just now. These knowledge systems were organized according to some ideals which determined the functions of the whole scheme of education. These included development of piety and religiousness through education, development of character, complete development of the personality, social and vocational efficiency, preservation and transmission of culture. Remember last 2 points, vocational efficiency and preservation and transmission. Remember this particular term, transmission of culture, what they signify. Actually, we should have a very clear idea about these 2 points. This is particularly important so far as the human society is concerned. We are human beings. We should not only know how to live from hand to mouth, but also we should transmit our experiences, our life situations, our experiences that we gather from our interactions in day-to-day life, real life situations or societies. We should transmit those experiences which you may call collectively culture to our later generations so that they can also successfully lead their lives. Our experiences should be shared in this way. We should pass our experiences to our later generations so that we can successfully enable them to lead their lives in their day-to-day real life situations. So this is why education system also included vocational efficiency, how to lead a life, how to lead success, how to live successfully, how to live well with artisanal developments or skills or capacities, and how to transmit our experiences to our later generations. These major 2 things were included. This is the major or principal or points of principal importance, cardinal importance that we should take note of. Vedic or Brahmanic system of education. What do you see? India. First of all, this system of education was the earliest knowledge system developed in India as found in the Samhitas and Vedas, etc. Three upper castes, Brahman, Kshatriya, Vaishya, they were, remember, Shudras were excluded because they were considered unfit for taking such and such education system because they had no knowledge about Sanskrit. So they were excluded from the list. The Shudras were not allowed admission as they did not have a, as I have told you just now, Brahmanic system. So there they had some aims, as I have told you. The highest aim, Parama Brahma Jnanam. What is that? First of all, the highest aim of the Brahmanic system was to initiate or to make the learner understand the concept of Parama Brahma Jnanam. That is, one was expected to desert all desires and mingled into the infinite God. This is called Parama Brahma Jnanam. Essentially, as the situations demanded, with the passage of time, society changed. With those changes, naturally, a human being could develop wishes, desires, which caused miseries in turn. So, one was to be made free from all these hazards from life. That was the major, highest aim of Brahmanic system of education. This is number one. Number two, this aim could be reached by a few only who were fit. Even today you see, not all are fit for higher education. Do you think that we are all fit for higher education, PhDs or research level? Are we fit for this? All? Not all. There are very few who can pursue research programs even today also. In the past also similarly was the case. Not all were allowed to pursue this thing because it demanded highest intellectual capacity. So was the aim. Thirdly, we find students of ordinary attainments received education to become self-sufficient in life. Remember one thing. Even today also in our society, what we see, not all human beings go for higher education. There are human beings, there are people who remain with some education about how to live well, how to live self-sufficient, being self-sufficient in real life situations. This much education they require, not for higher education, because they don't have that much of intellectual capacity with which they could pursue such and such highest intellectual attainments that they could attain. So this is why the third aim we find this some attainments, some education to be given to those who, so that they may be self-sufficient in their real life situations. So what we get next? Apart from the aims of education, there are rules regarding. Naturally, such aims have to be realized by following certain rules. Therefore, we are coming to the rules. Education was organized in the house of the teacher, that is Gurukul, form of informal residential form of education, and the Guru's house was usually situated among Salvan surroundings in a peaceful and congenial environment. Even today also we require certain peaceful atmosphere for our learning. When anyone wished to become a student of the Guru, the usual way was to approach him with a fuel in his hands as a mark of that he wished to serve him. The Guru inquired into his background, and if he was satisfied, he would accept him as his student. education began with the ceremony of, that is, Upanayana, initiation. The age of initiation differed according to one's caste. Brahmin was 8 years, Kshatriya was 12 years, Vaishya was 12 years, Kshatriya also 12 years. Up to 12 years, they had to stay within Guru's house and they had to take education accordingly. But in case of Brahmins, they stayed only 8 years because of the fact possibly they had much intellect. Within 8 years, they could grasp the Guru's knowledge. Even today also, you see, one student reads a piece, literary piece or any other thing 4 times, one student takes 1 times. This is also due to his having intellectual farsightedness, intellect. One is not, all are not equally intellectual. There are individual differences. According to their intellects, they take. So what we get next? Thereafter, the student becomes a member of the Guru's household. Completion of his studentship, the student performed all kinds of manual duties for the Guru, such as cleaning the house, washing the utensils, maintaining the fire, looking after cattle and land, fetching water. Teacher also looked after the student like his own son and provided the necessary training and instruction. Remember one thing very carefully. Why the student was asked to do all these menial jobs? Why? This is to be noted. Because student was to enter a grihastha or garhastha ashrama, when he would also become a husband of someone or father of sons and daughters, when he was also to perform household duties that would include all these things. So that was also trained up. He was also trained up in those performances, not only intellectually but also physical level training also was imparted to him so that he could successfully lead his garhastha household life. Next, ultimately, a deep and spiritual relationship was gradually developed between this teacher and the student naturally. As the student looked after the teacher, so the teacher also looked after the student. So this is how a very intimate relationship between the teacher and the student grew. What we get next? Initially, the curriculum, actually, what was to read, what was to do. Curriculum was narrow and oriented around scriptures and religious rituals. The curriculum was gradually made very vast in order to accommodate the needs of every student and also the 3 castes. Remember one thing, as I have told you just now, society had witnessed social, economic, political, other cultural changes. So education education also had to be adjusted with such changes. The Brahman student was designed to become a teacher. Naturally, he was to teach. Kshatriya was to save or provide protection to the people, and Vaishya a trader. Accordingly, they were trained up. The curriculum included the study of the Vedas, Brahmanas, Akhyanas, Aranyakas, Upanishads, Rashi, Nidhi, Gatha, Nakshatra Vidya, Akhyan, Vyakhyan, etc., etc. In short, we find 2 learning categories. First, Paravidya, that is, and another Aparavidya. The oral method, remember one thing here. Here, orally everything. Guru orally instructed the student, and student had to memorize all these things. No writing business. Student and the teacher committed everything to memory. Writing was not used at all in the field of education, and therefore everything was memorized. In fact, I think writing perhaps had not yet developed in that way as we find it to have been in use in later days. Apart from Mohenjo-daro case, because we don't know whether it was a writing system or symbol system, that we do not know. It is not yet proved. So writing was not used, memorization was followed. The student used different methods of learning. Sravana, here also we find still this is practiced. Sravana, Manana, that is thinking, and Nididhyasana, that's reflecting, were the important methods. Even today also we cannot avoid it. Though we are becoming more and more modern, even this system we cannot avoid. Even today, even at this moment, the ultimate educational goal was achieved through srama, that is renunciation. Renunciation means not only renouncing the household. Actually, renunciation should be mentally done. One has to renounce the world, every world it desires, only to develop intellect, educational strength, power. Tapa, that is sacrifice, and diksha, penance. Moreover, shraddha, that is self, individual. Even today we also self-study method, self-learning. In this e-Pathshala also you will get self-learning. So how to develop educationally? Self, independently. So individual study was important. Remember one thing, even today we cannot avoid these things. The normal course of this education was 12 years, that is, I have told you. When the student wanted to leave, he had to take permission from the Guru and then perform the Shamavartana. Even today in our university education, we perform Shamavartana, we celebrate Shamavartana Utsav. When student is being conferred a degree, Shamavartana, and he is called Snataka. Now he is graduated. The teacher never took any fees, as to teach was a duty he owed to society. He could then enter the second stage, that is household, Grihastha, that is Garhastha Asrama, when students bear lifelong pupils of the teacher. However, became lifelong pupils of the teacher. Some students, not all. Many students took to household duties, entered household life and performed their duties, contributed to the development of the society in general as well as the family in particular. So, Brahmanic system was continued. But remember one thing, society is not composed of only males. There are females also, without whose assistance or presence creation is not maintained. So we find women. What is their position? What was their position? We find certain women, Roma, Apala, Gargi, Maitri, they were superior categories of women. They had much intellectual capacities. They had developed education of their own. But not all women were equally educationally developed. Remember one thing, Jain system of education, what we get about that? Though Mahavira and Buddha were contemporaries, the Jainists claim that they were the first to organize their monasteries to preach their religion and culture among the masses. As I have told you, we should transmit our cultural experiences. They also stressed upon this fact. It was Mahavira, the 24th Tirthankara of the Jain religion, who recognized the Jain religion and established a system of education. According to his ideas, he wanted to educate the contemporary people or learner. The highest aim of education was moksha. Remember, Brahmanic system also moksha, liberation. Moksha means liberation. Liberation from what? Liberation from our limits of a particular state. Moksha, an ordinary aim was to develop strength and character and achieve sufficiency. I have told you just now, with the passage of time, one had to adjust with this situation or the surroundings, and that's why one had to develop his mental strength, physical strength, character, honesty, and achieve sufficiency, self-sufficiency. That is, one had to develop the art of knowing how to develop, how to lead a life independently. Education was organized in monasteries known as Upasraya, Gurukul, and Vasada. These monasteries were located coastal cities, capital cities, coastal areas, temperate climate, peaceful environment, so that education could be imparted. The education system was organized into 4 levels: education of princes, education of ascetics and nuns, education of laymen, education of lay females. Thus, all kinds of students, from princes to humble folk, were provided education. Monasteries were highly organized, consisting of an education executive and academic council. Teachers, that is acharyas, upadhyayas, sadhus, arhats, they constituted the council. The Jainas depicted 5 agencies of education: family, church, school, state, and industry. They stressed on 4 aspects of life: dana, shila, tapa, and bhavna. The Pambajadayakas initiated the novices in the educational field. The Nijapaka rehabilitated the students guilty of misconduct in the due course of their education. The cosmopolitan nature of monastic education of the Jainas comprised of an encyclopedic course of studies, religion, physical training, etc., commerce, etc. Curriculum embraced Hindu, Jain, Buddhist course of studies, as the Jaina wanted to show the superiority of their knowledge system. The inadequacy of memorizing as a method of disseminating knowledge was realized by the Jainas, so they adopted the method of 5-fold activities: rehearsal, repetition, concentration, interrogation, and discussion. Debates and lectures were also followed. Education ended after 12 years, as I told you, after which the novice was instructed by the teacher to spread the message of Jainism, and the student received his ordination as a monk. Women's education was encouraged in this system. Nunneries were established for their education. Buddhist system of education. Here we find the world is full of suffering. These points were emphasized upon. World is full of suffering. Suffering is caused by human desires. The renunciation of desires is the path to salvation, and the salvation is possible through the 8-fold path. The Ashtangika Marga was emphasized upon. According to him, man was himself the creator of miseries, so one has to desert desires so that one can lead peaceful life. What we get next? The most important of Buddhist system was to attain Nibbana, that is, the state in which one had no desires, free of full desires, fully free of desires. Buddhist, like Jainism, allowed people of all castes to be educated. The Vinaya was educational institution, Bihara was educational institution. However, anyone who entered the Bihara education had to be free from disease and either as a slave or debtor or nor in the king's service. These were excluded from taking education. The Buddhist system was organized in 4 levels: education of princes, education of ascetics, education of nuns, education of lay females. Buddhist system of education. The first step to initiation in the Buddhist order was to perform the ceremony of Pabbajja or going forth. The administration of the viharos was democratic. Every teacher had a small group of students, and teacher-student relationship was very, very peaceful and congenial. There were two kinds of teachers, acharyas and upadhyaya. Relationship between the teachers and their students living in the viharos was one of mutual respect. As I have told you just now, the student performed all menial jobs for the teacher. The curriculum was secular and it became organized into three levels: education of monks, education of family men, education of masses. Curriculum for mass education was Shilpo, Shabda, Logic, Chikitsa, Adhyatma Vidya, etc. Included were also the study of Buddhist scriptures, Jatakas, the Vedas, spinning, weaving, etc., etc., sentence making, etc. The oral method of teaching was adopted along with debates and discussions. Self-study was encouraged, as I have told you just now, in connection with the Brahmanic system of education. Prakrit was the medium, but later on Pali was adopted as the medium of instructing knowledge. The art of writing formed one of these skills, as I have told you just now. Initially, no writing, but in later days we find writing was followed. Education of the novice ended after 12 years, as I told you, and was terminated by the Upasampada ceremony, which meant conferring monkhood. In our days also we confer degrees on our students. This ceremony could only be performed at the age of 20. Buddha was not in favor of women's education, but on the instances of his famous disciple Ananda insistence, he agreed to open nunneries. There are many instances of women who became erudite Buddhist nuns, as Dhammadina, Sujata, Chopa, Kisa Gotami. Remember, not all women became highly educated. Some women became so. What we get in conclusion? The Brahmanical knowledge system was confined to the upper castes, and its dependence on rituals and animal sacrifices prevented the majority of the population from admission to this system. In contrast, both Jain and Buddhist systems provided an opportunity to the people to opt out of their caste and join a non-caste movement. They believed in tolerance and non-violence, opposed Vedic rituals and animal sacrifice. Both the Jain and Buddhist systems were monastic and congregational in nature and provided a missionary flavor. However, the popularity of Buddhist education was due to its liberal attitude and rational way of understanding life and its problems, as I have told you just now. Buddhism broke down the monopoly of Brahmanical schools and offered the possibility of education to people of all castes. Nevertheless, growth of the centers of higher learning which provided higher education can be attributed to both Brahmanic and Buddhist system of education. Taxila, Nalanda, Vikramshila, Vallabhi, Benaras, Nadia all provided high quality secular education to people. The Brahmanic, Jain, Buddhist systems continued their work of spreading knowledge and education even in the medieval age, when admission to their can be passed into the hands of Muslims. Here we find the beginning of another completely different system of education, that is Islamic system of education. But here also we find that they also stressed upon two major things. Number one, how to lead life physically as well as mentally. Here what we see, just let us see. Muslims rulers were upholders of a new religion, language and culture, which led to the establishment of a new formal knowledge system which was analogous to the other systems. This system consisted of two instructing maktabs and madrasas. Maktabs means primary education, madrasa, university or higher education system. They were institutions of primary education, as I have told you. Therefore, the objective of these maktabs were to provide mass education. 3 R's. Let's see. Any child seeking admission to a maktab had to go through maktab ceremony. He had to dress in new clothes and read out some lines from the Quran. The teacher recited the lines and child repeated the same. Another method of education was by saying Bismillah. The child was made write something. The teachers of maktabs were accorded an important place in society, and they were expected to have high moral character. Apart from the Muslims, even Hindus were allowed to study in maktabs. The teachers, 3 R's, as I have told you just now, 3 R's, reading, writing and arithmetic, and reading from the Quran, these constituting kalma and religious prayers from the curriculum in maktab. Students memorized the Persian grammar, and they were given lessons in ethics. Persian books like Yusuf Julekha, Guru Laila Majnu, Sikandar Nama, these were reading materials for learning. Students were acquainted with the Persian script and were also provided training in writing. Letters and drafting applications, slates and pencils were used. Education ended with the student had completed his studies. Some of these students took admission in madrasas. A few girls came to study to the maktabs. Most of the girls from affluent families were given education at home. They were instructed institutions of higher Muslim education, that is madrasas. They can be compared with modern day universities. They received financial patronage from the wealthy and charitable people as well as rulers. Some of them were attached to mosques, where some had their own building and land. The religious orientation of the institution determined its aim and objectives. The most important aim was to train Maulvis or teachers of Islam. After completing education in maktabs, students entered the madrasas. Teachers were highly educated and enjoyed a respectable position in society. Sometimes a monitorial system, that is, senior students taught the junior students. Hindus are also allowed admission. They provided religious education along classical lines. Later day, during the time of Mughal Emperor Akbar, secular studies were instructed, such as education in literature, grammar, logic, medicine, laws and prosody. Persian and Arabic were the medium of instruction. The oral method was sometimes used but writing was also allowed. Education ended with the permission of the teacher. The Purda system was followed, present, and therefore women were not allowed admission to these institutions. Conclusion, what we get. Although the rule of the Delhi Sultanate from 1191 to 1560 approximately led to changes in the formal educational structure, informal education continued without any major changes and was enriched by new ideas brought by the Muslims to India in the field of art, architecture, music and literature. Most of these sultans were uncharitable in their disposition towards the Brahmanical, Buddhist and Jain systems, and therefore state patronage was not there, and rulers patronized and developed their Islamic system of education. However, there was no state administrative machinery to regulate Islamic education. Muslim rulers patronized these institutions because it enhanced their merit, prestige, or when they felt it as a religious duty. The Mughal period witnessed developments in the field of Islamic education due to individual efforts of the rulers. Akbar, for an example, is very well-known personality. Mughal emperor can be regarded as the most important contributor towards the medieval education. Under his rule, a secular attitude can be noticed which led to developments in all the systems of education. Many Hindus gradually took admission to the Islamic system of education to get jobs in the administration of the Mughal emperor. Some important centers of education, Jaunpur, Malwa, Bidar, Agra, Delhi, where higher education was imparted. This is how we come to an end of the ancient Indian and early medieval education system. Thank you.